Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to Thursday's reading lesson. As usual, we are going to begin the lesson with some shout-outs and examples of good work, and then we will get started. So make sure that you've got your pen, pencil and piece of paper ready to start.
As usual, let's begin with the shout-outs. So well done, Millie B. I can see you've sent in a picture of your RED and you've been reading every day, which is absolutely fantastic to see. So I know that you've received your dojos for reading every day. Well done, you. And also a big well done to Finley in 6M, who is emailing his reading work every day, and it's absolutely fantastic to see him trying so hard. So well done. I will be awarding you both dojos for aspiration. Now, as promised, I have put together a Kahoot quiz using the unknown vocabulary and the definitions that you sent in to our Year 6 email address. I do apologise if you've sent in your email a little bit late and I haven't included your words, but there will always be another chance next time. So just be careful with the quiz because I've put some pictures in to confuse you. So don't just rely on the picture in the question to help you with the meaning. It might be a little bit of a trick. Last time you did really well in remembering to put your first name and the first letter of your surname as well as your class so that I could give you out some dojo points. So if you could do that again this time, that would be absolutely fantastic. Our learning objective for today is to make and justify inferences using evidence from the text. So this is your starter task for today, and this is a retrieval starter task. So we do this quite a lot in school where we give you a section of the text like I've done here, and we've got some words that we'd like you to find in the text. Okay, so your words are at the bottom here: cartridge, suspiciously, bug, Game Boy, Picasso and appeared. I'd like you to pause the video and see how quickly you can find all of those words in this extract of the text. Okay, pause the video now and find those words. Welcome back. How did you get on? Now, as you know, this is excellent practice of your skimming and scanning skills. Well done. Okay, so back to vocabulary. Now, can you have a go at reading these tricky words? Yes, so the first one is recreation. Now, I've put a picture here of the definition of that word. Now, in the text, it talks about a recreation room. Recreation. Even though the learning objective for today is inference, we still like to do lots of vocabulary recaps. So can you have a go at reading these tricky words? So the first one is recreation. And I've put a picture here of the definition because in the text, Fraulein Voll talks about a recreation room, and it's basically a room where people can just go and sit and relax and play some games. As you can see there are some sofas, some music and a pool table or a table tennis table. It's both, I think, yeah. And the next word is butler. So a butler is the highest levels male servant in a house. So it's somebody who is in charge of all the other servants. Okay, what is the root word in the word soundlessly? Okay, so soundlessly is an adverb to describe carrying out an action without any sound. So if we take away the ly suffix, we've got the adjective soundless. Okay, so we've got another suffix there at the end. Soundless means that there is no sound. So if we take away that suffix as well, we've got the noun sound. Okay, that is our root word. And then what spelling rule can you see in the word butler? Well done if you've been watching Mr. Powell's spelling videos this week. It is the ER ending. Well done. Our inference focus is all about this type of question. Now, I know we've definitely seen these questions before in class. Now, you're going to think about some extracts of the text and you're going to write down your impressions that you get from different characters. So as you can see here, this question is asking you to give 2 impressions and use evidence from the text to support your answer. Now, I've put this at the bottom of this slide. It's quite a famous quote, you might have heard it before. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Now, an impression is an idea that you get from somebody or something based on their actions or how they look. Okay, so that is exactly what we're asking you to do in these types of questions. So let's begin with a think question. Now, take a look at this picture I've got on the slide. I've got 2 candidates who want to apply to work at MI6. They want to join spy school. Now, the question is, what are your first impressions of these 2 recruits to spy school? Who would you employ to work at MI6, and can you give your reasons why? Pause the video and jot down your ideas, looking carefully at these pictures. Welcome back, Year 6. So I think if it were me, I would employ the lady on the left. Can you think why? Well, the lady on the left is smiling, which shows that she wants to try and make a good impression. She's friendly. She's reaching out her hand to, shake the hand of the person working at MI6. She wants to get to know them. She's wearing smart uniform. Her hair is tied back neatly. She's got lovely white teeth, which shows that she takes pride in her appearance. However, the candidate on the right, you can see his uniform is very messy. He looks a little bit miserable. He's wearing jeans, which shows that, he doesn't really want to make a good impression, does he? He looks a little bit lazy, a little bit sloppy, and that might cause me to think that he's going to be a bit sloppy in his spy work. So now we're going to apply what we've practiced in the starter task to these impression questions. So the question is, and this is my turn, what are your first impressions of Mr. Grin? Give 2 impressions using evidence from the text to support your answer. He changed his name after his accident. Accident? Alex found it hard not to stare at the terrible wounds. Mr. Grin used to work in a circus. It was a novelty knife-throwing act. For the climax, he used to catch a spinning knife between his teeth, but then, one night, his elderly mother came to see the show. She waved to him from the front row, and he got his timing wrong. He's worked for me for a dozen years now, and although his appearance may be displeasing, he is loyal and efficient. Don't try to talk with him, by the way. He has no tongue. Mr. Grin said. Nice to meet you, Alex muttered. Take him to the blue room, Sile commanded. He turned to Alex. You're fortunate that one of our nicest rooms has come up free, here in the house. We had a security man staying there, but he left us quite suddenly. I've started to think about answering my question by highlighting information in the text that could help me. So the first thing I've done is highlight descriptions of Mr. Grin's appearance. So I've highlighted that he was dressed in a black suit, that he was tall and thin, that he had a pale face. Alex gasped as soon as he saw him. He had 2 horrendous scars, which were a gruesome shade. And I've also highlighted the ways that other characters interact with Mr. Grin as well. So Alex found it hard not to stare at the terrible wounds. So this shows that Mr. Grin creates quite an impression, doesn't he, when he walks into the room? People can't take their eyes from him because they're so terrified and so taken aback by the scars on his face. I've also highlighted this information here. So we've got information about Mr. Grin's past. So he used to work in a circus. It was a knife-throwing act. So that suggests that he's fearless, that he's brave. But it also says here that he's loyal and efficient. And we can see that in the fact that Sile commands him to do things. And that's part of Mr. Gwyn's role as butler, is to take orders and to carry out duties for Sile. So we could get an impression there that he is efficient, that he is good at his job. Now that I've gathered my evidence and all my information about what Mr. Gwyn looks like, what he behaves like, how others interact with him, I can now go about answering my question. So let's just read that question again to make sure that we're clear on what it's asking us. What are your first impressions of Mr. Gwyn? Give 2 impressions using evidence from the text to support your answer. So I've created a table with 2 columns. In the first column I've got my impression of him, and then I've got my evidence to back it up. So my first impression of Mr. Gwyn is that he is terrifying. My evidence to back this up is that he has 2 horrendous scars on his face, and Alex gasped as he saw him. If Alex wasn't shocked, if he wasn't afraid, he would not have gasped, would he? So Alex is scared of Mr. Gwyn, which gives me the impression that he is scary, that he's terrifying. My second impression is that he is fearless, so he shows no fear, he is brave. Now my evidence for that is that Sile tells Alex that he used to work, so that Mr. Gwyn used to work as a knife thrower in a circus.
So before you have a go at answering one of these questions yourself, I'm going to read on a little bit to the next chapter called Looking for Trouble. Alex saw it the moment he opened his eyes. It would have been obvious to anyone who slept in the bed, but of course nobody had slept there since Ian Ryder had been killed. It was a triangle of white slipped into a fold in the canopy above the 4-poster bed. You had to be lying on your back to see it, like Alex was now. It was out of his reach. He had to balance a chair on the mattress and then stand on the chair to reach it. Wobbling, almost falling, he finally managed to trap it between his fingers and pull it out. In fact, it was a square of paper folded twice. Someone had drawn on it, a strange design with what looked like a reference number beneath it. There wasn't very much of it, but Alex recognised Ian Ryder's handwriting. But what did it mean? He pulled on some clothes, went over to the table and took out a sheet of plain paper. Quickly, he wrote a brief message in block capitals. Found this in Ian Ryder's room. Can you make any sense of it? Let me just show you this. Okay, so that's what he finds. And there's the note. Then he found his Game Boy, inserted the Nemesis cartridge into the back, turned it on and passed the screen over the 2 sheets of paper, scanning first his message and then the design. Instantaneously he knew a machine would click on in Mrs. Jones's office in London and a copy of the 2 pages would scroll out of the back. Maybe she could work it out. She was, after all, meant to work for intelligence. Finally, Alex turned off the Game Boy, then removed the back and hid the folded paper in the battery compartment. The diagram had to be important. Ian Ryder had hidden it. Maybe it was what had cost him his life. There was a knock at the door. Alex went over and opened it. Mr. Gwyn was standing outside, still wearing his butler's uniform. "Good morning," Alex said. "Grrr." Mr. Gwyn gestured, and Alex followed him back down the corridor and out of the house. He felt relieved to be out in the air, away from all the artwork. As they paused in front of the fountain, there was a sudden roar and a propeller-driven cargo plane dipped down over the roof of the house and landed on the runway. "Ifgly," Mr. Gwyn explained. "Just as I thought," Alex said. They reached the first of the modern buildings and Mr. Gwyn pressed his hand against a glass plate next to the door. There was a green glow as his fingerprints were read, and a moment later the door slid soundlessly open. Everything was different on the other side of the door. From the art and elegance of the main house, Alex could have stepped into the next century. Long white corridors with metallic floors, halogen lights, the unnatural chill of air conditioning. Another world. A woman was waiting for them, broad-shouldered and severe, her blonde hair twisted into the tightest of buns. She had a strangely blank, moon-shaped face, wire-framed spectacles and no makeup apart from a smear of yellow lipstick. She wore a white coat with a name tag pinned to the top pocket. It read, Vole. You must be Felix, she said. Or is it now? I understand. Alex? Yes. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Fraulein Vole. She had a thick German accent. You may call me Nadia. She glanced at Mr. Grin. I will take him from you. Mr. Grin nodded and left the building. This way? Vole began to walk. We have 4 blocks here. Block A, where we are now, is administration and recreation. Block B is software development. Block C is research and storage. Block D is where the main Stormbreaker assembly line is found. Where's breakfast? Alex asked. You have not eaten. I will send you a sandwich. Herr Seil is very keen for you to begin at once with the experience. She walked like a soldier, back straight, her feet in black leather shoes rapping against the floor. Alex followed her through a door and into a bare square room with a chair and a desk, and, on the desk, the first actual Stormbreaker he had ever seen. It was a beautiful machine. The iMac might have been the first computer with a real sense of design, but the Stormbreaker had far surpassed it. It was black apart from the white lightning bolt down one side, and the screen could have been a porthole into outer space. Alex sat behind the desk and turned it on. The computer booted itself instantly. A fork of animated lightning sliced across the screen. There was a swirl of clouds, and then, in burning red, the letters SE, the logo of Seil Enterprises, formed itself. Seconds later, the desktop appeared, with icons for maths, science, French, every subject ready to be accessed. Even in those brief seconds, Alex could feel the speed and the power of the computer, and Herod Seil was going to put one in every school in the country. He had to admire the man. It was an incredible gift. I leave you here, Fraulein Vole said. It is better for you, I think, to explore the Stormbreaker on your own. Tonight you will have dinner with Herr Seil, and you will tell him your feeling. Yeah, I'll tell him my feeling. I will have the sandwich sent in to you. But I must ask you, please, to not leave the room. There is, you understand, the security. Whatever you say, Mrs. Vole, Alex said.
Now it is your turn. So, Chili 1, you are going to answer the following question. What are your first impressions of Fraulein Vole, using what we've just read in the text and this image for support? Can you write down 3 adjectives to describe her appearance? So what she looks like. Let me zoom in on the text there so you can see it a little bit closer. And then Chili 2, you need to answer this question. What are your first impressions of Fraulein Vole? Give 2 impressions using evidence from the text to support your answer. So if you're answering Chili 3, I want you to complete all the chilies. If you're answering Chili 2, I want you to complete Chili 1 and Chili 2. Now, for this question, think back to my turn and what my steps to success were in answering the question. Remember, I looked back through the text, I highlighted the important bits of information, description of the character's appearance, the way they acted or reacted to other characters, and anything we know about their history as well. So I have actually got an extract of the text there to help you. So you might want to pause the screen here or once I've zoomed in to search for evidence for your answers. Now obviously you can't highlight what is on the screen here, but you could make some jottings, make some notes on your piece of paper. Okay, so let me scroll down. And scroll down again. Okay. And then Chili 3, how do you think Alex feels after meeting Mr. Grin and Nadia Vole? And explain your answer using evidence from the text. Shall we go through the answers then? Okay, so Chili 1's, you might have put she is serious. We know this because her eyebrows are arched and she is unsmiling, so she's not smiling. She is bold and outgoing, so she's wearing bright makeup. And she is fearless, so she holds the gun with purpose. And then Chili 2, you might have decided to write your answer in the format of a table. So the first impression, you might have put she is serious. We know this because her hair is tightly tied into a bun and she's got a blank moon-shaped face. So her face is blank, there's no expression on her face. And the second impression, you might have put she is efficient and no nonsense, so she shows no nonsense. And this is shown in the fact that she walks like a soldier and she's got her back straight, so she means business. You might have had other ideas and other impressions from the text because there was a lot of information there on that page. So feel free, as always, to send your answers and your ideas to our Year 6 email address so that we can check your answers. And then Chili 3, you might have put something like this. So he might feel apprehensive or he might have a sense of foreboding. We've learned about that word in class before when we did our war horse topic, our World War I. So the evidence for that, so he's feeling a bit nervous, a bit worried, is that he knows that Mr. Grin is fearless and he might start worrying that his own combat skills might not match Mr. Grin's knife throwing abilities. And then he might also be feeling intrigued or curious. So he might find Nadia's appearance interesting and wonder what her role is at Siles Complex, or what her job is.